Hey there, viewers. As the trial gets closer, things inside Diddy's prison cell aren't just tense. They're getting darker by the day. From his behavior to what guards are now reporting, it's clear something's shifting, and it's more disturbing than anyone expected. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The smell wasn't new. I've been working maintenance at MDC Brooklyn for 13 years now. Not high up or anything like that, just a janitor. Mostly early morning shifts. I mop, I sweep, I unclog what no one else wants to look at. I'm not the kind of guy who gets involved with the inmates unless I have to. I keep my head down, do my rounds, and leave by noon. That's the rhythm that keeps me sane in a place that eats through people like acid. But something's changed in the last few weeks. Since they moved that guy, Combs, Diddy, whatever name he goes by now, onto Unit 4 North. It wasn't a big thing at first. Just a shift in air pressure when you walked the corridor. The kind of thing you'd think was in your head if you didn't work in these halls every damn day, but I noticed. I've worked every tier of this place, and 4 North used to be a relatively chill dorm. Mostly non-violent guys, some white-collar fraudsters, a few government informants trying to stay out of trouble. It wasn't quiet, but it wasn't tense. Now, the whole unit's gone hush. Inmates used to call out during breakfast prep, ask for extra peanut butter or joke around with the guards. Now they don't even meet my eyes. I catch them watching that cell, Combs's, like it's got its own weather system. Like if they look too long, something might look back. The weird part is how quietly they moved him. I didn't even know he was coming out of SHU. They usually give us a heads up when a high-profile name gets shuffled. Not this time. One morning he was just there, same brown uniform as the rest, same mattress, same crap plastic spoon in his pocket. But nothing about him felt normal. His bed is against the far wall, near the drain that never worked right. The flickering light above him, I've replaced it twice in the last 10 days. Bulbs don't burn out that fast, not unless the wiring's shot. But when I opened the panel to check, everything looked brand new. No corrosion, no signs of tampering. Still, the damn thing hums and spits light, like it's got a mind of its own. And then there's the smell. It's sharp. Not like rot or mold. Those I'm used to. This is chemical. Almost surgical. Burnt hair and antiseptic, like a hospital fire. I've scrubbed the floor around his bunk 3 times, used bleach and industrial solvent. Still comes back. Always in the morning. Always right before breakfast when the vents kick on. It clings to your clothes. You walk away, and hours later, your shirt still smells like something scorched its way through the fabric. Diddy doesn't say much, doesn't make noise like some of the others do when they're trying to hold court or puff themselves up. He just sits. Sometimes hums low, like he's running through music in his head. But it ain't anything I recognize. No beat, no real rhythm, just fragments, half notes that stall and start again. Yesterday, I caught him standing near his cell wall, writing something with his finger. There's no dirt there, believe me, I clean it, but the wall was wet, thin layer of condensation, like breath on a mirror. His finger moved slow, deliberate. He wrote the same 3 words over and over. Remix, edit, and mute. I didn't ask. I just kept pushing my mop and pretended I didn't see. That's how you survive in here. Don't ask questions. Don't let the weirdness reach you. Still, I checked again today. Same wall, same words, faded a little, like he retraces them every morning. There was something about the way he looked at the letters, not like he was reading them, like he was remembering them. I've seen guys lose it in here, talk to themselves, smear their own blood on the walls and call it art, but this didn't feel like that. It felt intentional. I kept my distance, cleaned the sinks, made sure the toilets weren't backing up again, then went over to the laundry chute. It's tucked in the far corner of the unit, behind a locked panel that only maintenance has access to. I was checking the track for debris. Sometimes inmates try to shove contraband in the chute and jam it. I found a small USB drive just behind the hinge. It wasn't hidden well, just wedged behind a corner of the chute rail. No markings, no logo, just a piece of old yellow Scotch tape wrapped around it, and drawn on the tape was a crude eye, one of those all-seeing kinds. Single black iris, thick lines like a child had drawn it in a rush. I didn't tell anyone. I know I should have turned it in chain of command and all that, but something about it felt off, like it was waiting to be found, but not by them, not by the system. I slipped it in my pocket and finished my shift. Couldn't shake the feeling that it was still warm in my hand though, even through the fabric. Walking out of that unit today, I looked back once, just once. Diddy wasn't sitting anymore. He was standing in the middle of the dorm. Everyone else was on their bunks or turned away, but him, he stood still like a statue, head tilted slightly like he was listening to something no one else could hear. And as I stepped through the door, I swear, just for a second, I thought I saw that same condensation starting to form on the glass of the exit panel. 3 words, written backwards, from the inside. Remix, edit, mute. The same damn words. I left fast, didn't punch out, didn't check with the desk. That smell still stuck to my jacket. That USB still in my pocket. And all I could think was, I've cleaned blood off floors. I've scraped dried feces off walls. I've seen inmates scream their teeth out, but this ain't about any of that. Something's wrong in Unit 4 North, and it started when they moved him in. Chapter 2. His reflection didn't move. I've evaluated some of the most unstable minds on the eastern seaboard. Terror suspects, killers, men who confessed with a smile and begged for another hour just to keep talking. I don't scare easy, and I don't fall for theatrics. But Sean Combs, or what's left of the man, has been scratching at the inside of my head ever since I stepped into that room. It was supposed to be routine. Standard evaluation, 10 days before trial. The department needed updated mental health clearance for him to continue in general population and be competent to stand trial. They flagged him early on for psychological monitoring, first from the suicide watch, then later because of what the guards were reporting. Hours spent motionless, odd speech patterns, refusal to sleep. I had already signed off on more than 24 similar cases this year. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. But Combs wasn't unstable. He wasn't delusional or violent or withdrawn. He was still, too still. They brought him into the evaluation room, wrists shackled, but he walked like he didn't even notice the cuffs. Sat down without a sound, eyes straight ahead. No twitching, no glancing around, no aggression, just presence. The kind that makes you feel like you're the one being studied. Mr. Combs, I started, setting my clipboard down. This is a standard mental wellness evaluation. It won't affect the outcome of your case, just helps determine your ability to participate in the trial. Understand? He nodded, but didn't blink. I waited a beat. Any thoughts of hurting yourself or others? He tilted his head. Is that the question you're supposed to start with, or just the one they loop when they're unsure I'm listening? I wrote it off. Evasive, possibly performative. You've been noted as not sleeping for 3 consecutive nights, I said. Is that accurate? I don't sleep, he said. I rerun. Excuse me? He tapped the side of his temple lightly, like adjusting a dial. Reruns, like old footage. Dreams I didn't dream, parties I didn't throw, faces I forgot the names to, but I see them anyway. I scribbled that down. These reruns, do they interfere with your awareness during the day? I think they're the day, he said. Nights just when I become aware they're playing. Still no blinking. You're speaking in metaphor, I said. He looked me directly in the eye. Am I? EEG logs from the prior week showed his brain entering delta wave cycles while he was talking to guards. One log captured deep sleep patterns at 11:43 IEM, even though staff confirmed he'd been pacing and responding to direct orders. His mouth moved, his posture changed, but his brain was asleep. Either the machine was wrong or something far worse was true. "You know your trial date?" I asked. He didn't answer for a long time, just stared at the one-way glass behind me. Then he whispered, barely audible, "The jury's already inside. They've seen it, so have you." I sat back. Seen what? But he didn't respond, just turned his eyes to the corner of the ceiling where the room's surveillance camera was embedded. The way he looked at it, like he could see past the lens, past the tape, into whoever might be watching. Session ended shortly after. He stood when prompted, walked back to holding. No resistance. But I didn't leave the room. I sat there a while, staring at the space where he'd been. Something about it felt wrong, like the room still carried him in it. Not the man, but something he brought with him. The temperature hadn't changed, but I found myself folding my arms, cold, dry in my mouth, something sticking to the air. I pulled his file later that evening. His movement logs, surveillance footage, staff notes. I wanted to double-check his head count records. Something about his comment, "The jury's already inside," was chewing at me. What I found didn't make sense. 2 nights prior, Diddy had been recorded on cell block surveillance at 2:06 a.m. at brushing his teeth. The same time, he was marked present on a roving head count 2 tiers below in 3 North. Not just a clerical error. There were signatures, timestamps, camera logs. 2 guards, 2 locations. Impossible. I requested CCTV for both blocks. The footage for 3 North was clean. Quick check of the door, nod from Combs, mark on the clipboard. But 4 North? That's where it got strange. The footage wasn't from one moment. It was a loop. A single clip of Combs brushing his teeth. 45 minutes straight, no sound, his hand moving slowly, no rinse, no spit, just brushing. His reflection in the mirror only appeared once, at the 12-minute mark. After that, he kept brushing, but the mirror stayed blank. No fog, no face, nothing. The camera didn't skip, the angle didn't change, it just kept showing the same action, the same man, minus his mirror image. And then, at minute 32, something flickered. A frame, just one, where the sink water flowed backward. I paused it, rewound, it was gone. I reported the footage corruption. The techs ran diagnostics, no system errors. They told me the feed was untouched. I asked one of them, jokingly, if it was possible for a reflection to just stop showing up. He laughed, said, "Maybe in a horror movie." But I wasn't joking. I don't believe in spirits. I don't think people can haunt places while they're still alive. But Combs, he doesn't feel alive. Not in any way that makes sense. When he speaks, it's like there's delay in the room. Like the words take a second too long to land. Like they've traveled through something thick and warped to reach you. I made a note in his file. Unstable narrative cognition. Evidence of delusional processing. Risk of identity erosion due to dissociative episodes. I signed it, submitted it, then locked the footage to an encrypted drive. I haven't slept since. In my dreams, I see him brushing his teeth over and over. And I'm the one in the mirror, watching him. And just before I wake up, I always hear the same line, whispered like static. "You've already seen it, the jury's already inside." And maybe the worst part? I believe him. Chapter 3. They don't call his name at roll call. I thought white-collar prison was a myth until I got caught up in all this. Some dumb wire fraud, nothing violent. I never touched a gun, never ran with gangs, just numbers on screens. Thought I'd land in some low-security place, maybe play ping-pong with some hedge fund guy doing 2 years. That's what my lawyer promised, said I'd ride it out like summer camp. Instead, they dropped me in MDC Brooklyn, Unit 4 North. I could feel it before I even got to the tier. The air changed. You know how hospitals smell too clean, like they're trying to cover up death with disinfectant? It was like that, but thicker. Sterile, yeah, but heavy too. Like the air didn't want to be breathed. The CO escorting me didn't talk much, just kept walking fast, didn't look over his shoulder once. When we passed the security door to 4 North, I caught the tail end of roll call. They were doing names, loud and clear. Santos, Morris, Nguyen. Then a pause. No name. Just silence. Then the guard said, "All right, all accounted for." I didn't think much of it at the time. They showed me to my bunk, bottom rack far end diagonal from the showers. Guy on the top bunk nodded at me, didn't speak. He looked like he hadn't blinked in an hour, face tight. Jaw clenched like he was chewing glass. Whole dorm was like that. Eyes darting, shoulders tense. Conversations barely above whispers. Everyone either staring at their food trays or their mattress seams like something was hidden in there. I tried introducing myself the second night, just to one guy, older inmate named Kells. Saw him reading a paperback with no cover, figured he looked sane enough. "Hey, I'm Jared," I said, extending a hand. He didn't take it, just shook his head and looked past me. Not through me, past me. Like something behind me was more important. "You don't talk loud in here," he said. "Okay," I chuckled, trying to lighten it. Didn't realize we had a sound ordinance. He looked back at me then, really looked, like he was weighing if I was worth saving or not. "You seen yet?" he asked. Kells just glanced toward the far bunk, one man, sitting with his back to the wall, legs stretched out, unmoving, staring straight ahead. He had the kind of stillness that made everyone else feel nervous for just breathing too loud near him. "That's Diddy, right?" I asked. "I heard rumors." Kells' hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, hard. "Don't say his name," he hissed. "Not here, not out loud." I was too stunned to speak. His grip loosened, but his eyes didn't. "They call him the One now? Or just him?" "Wait. In code. Music. Hooks. Verses. Some of them ain't been released. Some of them never got written. But people still hear them." I laughed, more out of discomfort than disbelief. "Come on, man." Kells didn't flinch. "You listen too close, you start hearing it in your sleep. You start finishing the lines, start mouthing it without realizing. You do that, you're not you anymore." I pulled away from him and muttered something under my breath, walked back to my bunk. That night I lay awake while the vents kicked on overhead. The white noise was louder than usual, like the whole system was struggling to push air. Then came the murmurs. It wasn't words at first, just tones, but then rhythm formed, flow, like a beat just under the threshold of hearing. Then lyrics. Clear, layered, dozens of voices, men, women, children, all weaving in and out of each other. One chorus kept repeating. They built it with silence, they fed it with fame. I reached over, grabbed my tiny notepad and wrote the line down. It felt automatic, like it wasn't even my hand moving. I didn't even check spelling, just wrote it again and again until I fell asleep. When I woke up, I felt a burn on my shoulder, lifted my shirt, and there it was. The exact phrase tattooed into my skin in thin, bruised-back ink. They built it with silence, they fed it with fame. I didn't have a pen, I hadn't seen a single piece of contraband since I got here. No needles, no mirrors, no ink, nothing. It looked raw, like it was just done. Faint blood spots around the edges, no scabbing yet. I stumbled out of bed, heart pounding, shirt half off, yelling for the guard. Everyone turned to stare. Except him. He was still on his bunk, legs crossed now, one hand drumming an invisible rhythm on his knee, lips moving, mouthing the exact words on my shoulder. Over and over. I filed a complaint. demanded medical, said someone branded me or drugged me or, I don't know, I just wanted out. They put me in medical overnight, took pictures. The nurse asked how long I'd had the tattoo. I told her it appeared last night. She gave me a look like I'd told her I'd grown wings. The next day they moved me. No warning. Just 2 guards outside my door with transfer papers. No explanation. I asked where I was going. They didn't answer. They didn't even look at me. As they led me out, I glanced back at my old dorm through the wired glass. Someone else was already in my bunk. Except not really. It was empty. Everyone else was where they were supposed to be. Except that spot. Even my mattress was gone. Rolled up, shelf bare. And there he was, Combs, the one staring at the space like it owed him something. Like it had taken something from him, or maybe he'd taken something from it. Then he looked up, right at me, and smiled. Not a big grin, just the corner of his mouth rising. Like a silent hook only he could hear had just dropped, and I was already in the verse. Chapter 4. The camera turns on by itself. I work in surveillance tech. Not glamorous, not exciting, just code, feeds, and hard drives. I'm not law enforcement, not corrections, not some ex-military guy with a badge and a grudge. I'm just a contract technician who makes sure the cameras don't glitch and the evidence chain stays clean for trial. At least, that's what the job was supposed to be. They brought me in for prep on a high-profile federal case, something about special monitoring protocols ahead of trial. My task was simple: scrub and catalog all camera feeds around one specific inmate, Sean Combs, Diddy. They didn't tell me why. Didn't have to. Word travels fast in back-end departments. I already knew about the allegations, the tape, the trafficking charges, the celebrities avoiding him like he was radioactive. But I didn't care about any of that. My job was to build a secure digital folder, time-stamped, corruption-free, fed into a closed loop so the court could monitor him remotely during trial. But something was wrong with the footage from 4 North. It started with a simple error message, something I've only seen once before in years of work. A file tagged 4N_cam7_comms_door refused to load through our standard playback software. When I tried running it through backup tools, it crashed the program. No fanfare, no spinning wheel, just dead air and a frozen screen. So I dug into the metadata, and that's when I saw it. The timestamp on the file was dated for tomorrow. Not today, not yesterday, tomorrow, 4:21 AM. I checked server sync, checked file logs, checked everything. No way a camera feed should exist for a time that hadn't passed yet. The file was exactly 6 minutes and 20 seconds long. I finally got it to load using a raw packet reader, something that strips it down to base binary playback. It's ugly, slow, no audio, but it works. And what I saw still doesn't make sense. The footage starts with a view of Combs' door. Standard cell door, steel bars, low angle, empty corridor. Then, frame by frame, the shadows start to shift. Not from people moving, more like the light source flickers and throws shapes where there shouldn't be any. For a second the hallway bends, literally bends inward, like the walls ripple toward each other, then snap back into place. At 3:04 in the video, a guard enters the frame. I recognized him, Wilkes. I've met him before during camera maintenance. Loud guy, always sweating. In the footage, he's walking like normal, until he's not. He turns toward the cell, then blinks out of frame. One frame he's there, mid-step. The next, gone. No blur, no fade, just gone. Half a second later, Combs appears in frame, standing behind the cell door, staring directly at the camera. He doesn't move, doesn't blink. His mouth opens slightly, just enough that if there were audio, you'd think he was about to speak. And then something behind him moves. It wasn't human. Not in the way we think about movement, more like light bending through something hollow, a flicker, tall and narrow, standing behind his shoulder. The file ends on a static frame, Diddy still staring forward. Something wrong with his eyes, like the whites were reversed, just black. I closed the file, deleted it from the playback queue, tried to wipe it from the secure directory. But instead of deleting, the screen went black. Then a new window popped up. No loading bar, no system prompt. Just white text on a gray screen. Premiere Access, Director's Cut. I sat back, heart thumping. I knew no one in my office coded anything with a title like that. No folder, no asset link, nothing that made sense. It auto-played. Different video. Security camera footage, low-res, wide-angle. Looks like a hotel hallway, 2 bodies, man and woman, blurred slightly but not enough. It was him. It was her. Cassie. The angle wasn't the one from the publicly leaked clip. This was longer, wider, no sound. The motion was slower than I remembered from the viral versions. The movements weren't as sudden. The pacing felt choreographed. More disturbing, the positioning was off. The reactions too. The woman recoils, but not like she's being hit. More like she knows she's being watched. She glances up at the ceiling, straight at the camera. Her lips move, but the man doesn't respond. In this version, he barely touches her. And yet she still crumples like she was pushed. It ends with the woman on the floor, but instead of him walking away like in the footage I'd seen on the news, he stands over her for a full 30 seconds, looking down, then looking at the camera, then smiling. Same smile I saw in the Tomorrow footage. I slammed my laptop closed. I reported it, or tried to. I went straight to my supervisor's stand. Ex-FFBI. Barely blinks even when fire alarms go off. I told him what I found, showed him the metadata logs, told him the file played itself and wouldn't delete. He didn't even look surprised. Just stared at me, then said, "You weren't hired to edit." I blinked. "What?" "You were hired to watch." I left early that night. Didn't check out. Took the long way out through the rear maintenance corridor. I could still feel that thing from the footage. Not the image of it, the impression. Like it had burned into my retinas or left its shape inside the static between thoughts. When I got home, I powered down everything. Every screen, my TV, my phone. I unplugged my router, slept with a towel draped over my monitor. Still heard something, a soft ping, like a notification. And this morning when I checked my computer, still offline mind you, a file had appeared on the desktop. Just one. No title, no extension. Just a thumbnail. Black background. White letters. The jury's already inside NUP 4. I haven't clicked it. Not yet. But the camera on my laptop. It turned on by itself this morning. And stayed on. Even after I shut the laptop. Chapter 5. The lyrics don't match the music anymore. You learn to let silence do the heavy lifting in prison ministry. Confessions here don't come like they do in church pews or hospital rooms. They're stretched thin over time, carried on the backs of sleepless nights and half-eaten meals. Men don't cry easily in these walls, not even when they want to. But they hum, they tap, they quote scripture they barely remember, and sometimes, if you sit still long enough, the silence turns into something you can understand. I've been the chaplain at MDC Brooklyn going on 6 years, long enough to see what spiritual rot looks like. It's not always loud. Most days it's quiet, dry, like ash settling in corners no mop ever reaches. But Calms, he's a different kind of quiet. He doesn't attend prayer circle, doesn't take communion, but every week, without fail, he shows up to the chapel 10 minutes early, sits on the far end of the second pew, and hums. Same pattern, same timing. It's always just slightly off key, like a melody he remembers from another lifetime. And the words, they never match. Sometimes it's gospel, sometimes it's rap, sometimes it sounds like both at once. But it's the way he sings it, like the lyrics are trying to catch up to him, like they're being rewritten mid-air. At first, I thought it was just ego, a former mogul performing to an invisible audience. But the longer I listened, the more I realized he wasn't performing. He was recalling. One afternoon during chapel prep, I was laying out the hymnals when the CD player kicked on by itself. We haven't used discs in years. Everything's been USB since the funding cuts. But somehow it clicked. Tray opened, closed. Then static poured through the speakers. Then music. A low beat, unmistakably his sound, production style, flow, even the signature ad-lib at the start. But the lyrics weren't anything I'd ever heard. And I used to like his music. I remembered his tracks. This one wasn't on any record. No mixtape, no bootleg, no feature. The first verse dropped in like a whisper, sliding under the floorboards. Block 4 north, drain runs red. Wilkes blinked out, then came back dead. I froze. The name Wilkes, that was the guard who went missing on watch 2 weeks ago, still hadn't been found. The line matched what I'd heard in whispers and coded gossip. Then another line followed. Head count skipped. Reflection lied. The priest keeps notes he tries to hide. I dropped the hymnal. The song kept going. Verse after verse, every word dug into something inside me. Things I'd seen. Things I'd noted in my own journals. Events that were never officially recorded. Names only, I knew. I hit stop on the player, it kept playing. Unplugged it. Still playing. It finally cut off when I flipped the breaker in the utility closet. No one else heard it, no one else was in the chapel. I checked the machine again after the lights came back on. No disk inside. No USB. No power cord. Just the empty tray open, humming softly. I confronted Combs during cell rounds the next morning. I wasn't supposed to. I'm not security. I don't do private visits unless requested. But I needed to ask. He was sitting cross-legged on his bunk, humming again, that same broken melody. Where did that song come from? I asked. He looked up, calm, clear-eyed, like he knew I'd come. You think music comes from inspiration, he said. It doesn't. It comes from remembering what we're supposed to forget. I didn't reply, couldn't. Something about the way he said it, too practiced, like he'd said it before, to someone else, or maybe to me, a long time ago. Later that evening, I returned to my office. I locked the door, took out the CD player, hooked it to my computer, and ran diagnostics. Found nothing. But the audio had somehow been recorded on my office PC. Let's see the file name. Track_7_final burn pp3. I hit play. It started the same beat, same lines. Then, midway through the third verse, it shifted. When the chorus hits and the walls all melt, the priest will burn for what he felt. I paused it. My palms were damp. My chair suddenly felt too warm. I reached for my notepad, the one I used to log spiritual notes, inmate progress, scripture requests. I flipped to the last page. There, written in my own handwriting, was the same lyric. The priest will burn when the final track hits the air. I don't remember writing it. I stared at the line until my eyes hurt. Then the chapel fire alarm went off. I rushed down 2 flights, through the security checkpoint, and found smoke already curling out of the chapel doors. Guards were dousing the entrance with extinguishers. No flames, just heavy, choking smoke and the stink of burning wires. They said it was an electrical short. Said it started in the ceiling speaker. Problem is, those speakers haven't worked in over a year. The main system's disconnected. We only use portable units now. But one of the ceiling speakers had melted, like it'd been pumping power straight from a live line. That corner of the chapel, It was where calms always sat. No one could explain it. Fire marshals chalked it up to infrastructure strain, old wiring, moisture, whatever helped them sleep. But I knew. I listened to that track one more time, all the way through. The final line, buried under layers of distortion, said something else entirely. Faith dies in frequency. I don't know if I'm supposed to report this. Don't know who'd even believe me if I tried. But I stopped holding services this week, and I unplugged every speaker in my office. Because last night, I heard music again. No source, no device, just a faint melody leaking from the walls. And this time, the lyrics didn't just match events. They described what I was doing as I was doing it. Word for word. Chapter 6. The defense folder changed overnight. I was brought onto the Combs case 2 months ago, fresh out of law school, eager, underpaid, and desperate to prove I belonged in the room. I wasn't even supposed to be handling any of the sealed material, just file prep, redaction logs, timelines, the kind of work that gets you coffee-stained and forgotten. But the minute I touched the defense binder, I knew something wasn't right. At first it was minor. Documents I'd sorted alphabetically suddenly scrambled, exhibits mislabeled. A folder called Motion to Suppress 2016 footage appeared twice, once with our firm's watermark, once without. I flagged it, thought maybe another intern duplicated it, but when I opened the second file, the content wasn't just different. It was older, drafts of motions we hadn't written yet, referring to dates in the past that never happened. I stayed late to clean it all up, rebuilt the prep binder from scratch, made backups, 3 of them, on separate encrypted drives. I left that night feeling accomplished, in control. The next morning, my desk was a mess. Not trashed, just rearranged. Notes I'd filed were sitting on top of the wrong folders. The trial outline was missing its first 2 sections and had a new one labeled Echo Chains Variant B. No one else had access to my station. Our whole wing is on lockdown for this case. I brought it to my supervising attorney. She gave me a tight smile and said, "This case is built on chaos. You'll get used to it." But I didn't get used to it. Because the file didn't just move, it changed. Timelines began to contradict each other. Discovery logs had witnesses that no longer existed in our databases. One file mentioned a statement of retraction, Ventura, unsubmitted. But when I tried to find the original deposition, it was gone. Completely scrubbed. And then the video started to glitch. I was in the review room with another assistant when we loaded the Cassie surveillance clip, the one from the hotel in 2016. I'd seen it before. It was ugly, disturbing. But I knew the frames. Only now something was wrong. At the 10-second mark, just before the physical altercation begins, the hallway behind them stretches. Not figuratively, not a camera glitch. The geometry of the space warps. The carpet folds outward like it's lifting into a slope. The walls ripple, just once, quick, a flash, then gone. I rewound it, it didn't happen again. Then the next frame showed something else. A burn mark on the hotel wallpaper. A circular symbol, too clean to be a shadow, too detailed to be damage. I paused and zoomed in. It looked like a spiral inside an open eye. I checked the original file hash. It was unchanged. According to the system, the footage hadn't been altered. But the hallway was longer than it used to be. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the way Diddy had looked during our last legal prep meeting. He didn't ask questions, didn't respond to half the objections we walked him through. He just sat there, his hand resting on the table like he was keeping it from floating away. His voice, when he did speak, was slower than I remembered. Not groggy, just slightly out of sync, like it arrived a second late from somewhere else. I scheduled another visit. This time I brought printed copies of the glitched frame and the changed timeline. He looked at them and smiled faintly, almost like he was impressed. "You don't need to prove anything," he said, not looking at the pages. Just delay it long enough for the echo to finish. I stared at him. What echo? He tapped the edge of the table lightly, a rhythm I didn't recognize, then said, "You ever hear the beat before the lyrics?" I didn't respond. "That's this," he whispered. "This whole trial. Just a beat. The lyrics haven't landed yet." He leaned forward, eyes sharper now, locked on mine. "You still think this is about guilt, about truth? That's cute." I left early. That night I found a file on my desk that wasn't there before. Handwritten notes in my own handwriting. A full outline titled Echo Protocol, Final Mix. I flipped through the pages, heart in my throat. Timelines, motions, even legal theories we hadn't discussed in any meetings. They were mine, my voice, my format, my pen, but they weren't real. Some sections described hearings that hadn't happened. Others referenced evidence we didn't have. One entire paragraph talked about a tunnel beneath the holding facility, something called the procession path. Then the last page, typed, not handwritten, a single sentence. Center aligned. Defense's only delay. He's already guilty of becoming. I didn't go to the office the next day. I stayed home, pored over every backup, every duplicate. Every file was the same. Like they'd always been that way. Like I'd imagined the original version. Or maybe like the case was changing in real time, reshaping itself faster than we could hold it down. I don't know what I'm defending anymore. And I don't know who or what is actually on trial. But every time I load that folder now, I hear a faint click from my speaker. Just once. No audio. Like someone pressing play. Chapter 7. The music starts before he speaks. I've been a federal marshal for 18 years. I've transferred everyone from drug lords to retired war criminals to corrupt CEOs still wearing Rolexes under their jumpsuits. Nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing rattles me. You cuff them, you move them, you sit your ass in the van and you get it done. Or at least that used to be true. The morning I was assigned Combs, I didn't blink, just scanned the paperwork like I always do. He was being moved for jury selection. MDC Brooklyn to the Eastern District Courthouse. 10, maybe 15 minutes tops in traffic. Basic shackled transport, no escort needed. High profile or not, the man was quiet, compliant, and sedated according to the notes. Except he wasn't sedated when I picked him up. He stood on his own, calm, cuffed, no resistance. But something was off right away. His eyes weren't just tired, they were hollow. Not the desperate kind of hollow I see in the eyes of men heading to trial, but the kind that made me feel like I had been emptied out. Like the moment I met his gaze, something inside me slowed. I shook it off, checked his cuffs, read him the transfer log, and guided him into the van. He didn't speak, not even when the doors shut behind us. We pulled out of MDC just before 8 a.m. I had the van radio off as usual, no distractions. But 3 blocks in, the static started. It came from nowhere, just this low fuzz under the dash. I reached for the knob to shut it off, but it was already off. Display blank. I even thumped it with my knuckles. That's when the melody began. Low, winding, half familiar. It wasn't a song I knew, not exactly, but it felt like I did. Like something I heard in childhood, in the background of a room I don't remember. The rhythm wasn't consistent. It looped, but not quite right, like it was improvising its way through me. And then Combs began to hum. I glanced in the rearview mirror. His mouth barely moved, lips closed, throat vibrating, humming the exact tune. Not out of sync, not copying, leading. My grip tightened on the wheel. I tried to speed up, but the blocks stretched, like the city grid didn't want to end. Every turn should have been closer to the courthouse, but we kept passing the same shuttered bodega. The same bus stop with the same torn poster of a missing woman. Time didn't feel normal anymore. I checked the dashboard clock. 8:13 a.m. 5 minutes later, I checked again. Still 8:13. Outside, the sun hadn't moved. I blinked hard, shook my head, cranked the AC to wake myself up. I glanced back. Combs was staring at me now, not through the glass divider. At me, like the wall between us didn't matter. And that's when he spoke. "This is the part where you wake up," he said, voice low, even. "But you won't." I hit the brakes. Hard. He didn't budge. Like inertia didn't apply to him. I nearly radioed dispatch but stopped myself. What the hell would I even say? Instead, I threw the van back into gear and sped the rest of the way to the courthouse, ignoring the route we were supposed to take. Just needed to get him out of the van, needed to get away. When we arrived, the sun still hadn't moved. I checked my watch. It had stopped, same time as the van, 8:13. 2 bailiffs met us at the loading dock. I stepped out, dizzy. My legs weren't steady, ears ringing, hands sweaty inside the gloves. They helped escort Combs inside. I followed, still reeling. The second we crossed the threshold, I knew something was wrong with the building. The air was thick, not humid, dense, like the whole place was padded from the inside. Every sound echoed wrong. Footsteps bounced in the wrong direction. One bailiff sneezed and the reverb came from behind us. We walked Combs to holding. As he sat down, he started humming again. The same tune. A courthouse tech ran an audio check on the courtroom speakers. Routine procedure before jury selection. I saw it happen from across the hall. He pressed play, and the system pumped out something not on the docket. Offerings reversed. It wasn't music, it was layers of sound. Voices, gasping, backwards notes, distorted gospel loops. One bailiff collapsed right there in the aisle, clutching his ears. Another puked against the jury box. They shut the system down, said it was a corrupted file. But I saw the tech's face. He didn't look surprised. He looked terrified. Back in holding, Combs hadn't moved. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady myself. That's when I realized I'd been writing something on my notepad without noticing. Musical bars. Not words, just 5 parallel lines, over and over, like sheet music, looped symbols. Notations I don't understand. I flipped the notepad closed and wiped my hand. Blood. I touched my ear. More blood. No injury, just licking, like whatever I'd heard had bled its way into me. I don't remember the rest of the day clearly. I think I escorted him to the courtroom. I think I signed his custody handoff, but I couldn't tell you who I spoke to or how the hearing ended. I just remember his voice as I left. "You will hum it soon," he said. "Don't fight it. That's how the new songs begin." Haven't slept since. And every night just before dawn I wake up to the sound of music. Low, familiar, just out of reach. And when I press record, there's never anything there. But the blood keeps coming. Chapter 8. He was never the star, just the frequency. I tried to track the sequence of events before the trial, but the days started folding in on themselves. We were supposed to be prepared, jury selected, evidence processed, statements locked in. But somewhere in the build-up the timeline cracked. No one can say exactly when things began to drift. Maybe it was when the defense team stopped showing up, or when the judge called for chambers and never came back, or maybe it was earlier, when Combs stopped responding to his own name and the cameras started leaking black. I'm just the archivist. I log records, scan transcripts, timestamp events, keep the story straight. Except now, the story won't hold still. Whole segments of the file are blank, not redacted, just gone. You open the page and there's a gap, a silence. It's not white like a printing error. It's darker, like something peeled the ink off and left an absence behind. The court seal on the pretrial summary, replaced. Not by hand, not by order, digitally overwritten. It now shows a circular waveform, an audio ripple captured in still form. No initials, no date, just resonance. The last memo entered into the system by a federal case handler simply read, "Subject no longer maintains fixed shape." It's when I stopped writing. Chaplain's log, unfiled entry. I put in my transfer request 3 days ago. After the fire, after the CD player incident, after the music wouldn't stop playing even when the speakers were unplugged. I can't explain it to anyone without sounding mad. I've burned my notes, disconnected from the rotation, and packed my Bible in plastic wrap. But I still hear it. Not music anymore. Something older, layered beneath the prayers now. I hear them when I walk past Diddy's cell. Not his voice, voices inside his voice. And the thing that frightens me most is, I've started to understand them. Last night he looked at me and said, "They gave me the mic, but I was never the artist." Then he whispered something I haven't been able to forget. "I was just the frequency. You tuned in. That's your mistake." Not a religious man anymore. Not after this. Not after feeling faith dissolve in feedback.
Inmate statement, anonymous submission. They told me he was in 4 North, but that unit's locked now. Lights off, no staff rotation, no food trays. Just humming through the vents, like the walls themselves are remembering the melody. We used to hear him rap low, weird verses. Thought it was to keep himself sane, but now the words are gone. It's just tone, pulse. The last time I passed his unit, the air felt elastic, like walking through stretched cellophane. One guy, Hernandez, tried to call out to him. Next morning, he was gone. Not transferred, gone. His bunk folded in on itself. They sent a new mattress, but no one touches it. They say it sings when you sleep on it. Technician, final entry, recovered from crash logs. I don't know how to stop the feed. Every time I try to shut down the security network for maintenance, it restarts itself. Cameras aimed at Diddy's cell are wrong now. The lens melts slowly as it records. Liquid black drips down the inside of the glass, but the video keeps coming through.
He hasn't moved in hours, but each frame is different. Slight angle shifts, like the cell is rotating around him, and behind him, the shadows don't match the light sources anymore. They bend the wrong way.
I tried to wipe the server. It restored from a file that didn't exist yesterday. comms_eco_master_final. It's not video, it's audio. 56 minutes of silence broken only by the phrase, "You've heard me before." Unplugged everything. I still hear it. And then there was the janitor. They say he collapsed in the laundry tunnel 2 days ago, diagnosed with severe vertigo, but the medical wing called it something else in the notes. Echo-induced vestibular disintegration. Not a real condition. But his hearing is gone permanently, and his hands won't stop shaking. They say he tried to draw something on the hospital wall, a waveform, in charcoal, left ear bleeding. When asked what happened, he said, "He's not in the cell, he's in the air." Today was supposed to be trial day. I sat outside the courtroom and watched the staff come and go without ever going inside. A clerk asked me what time the hearing started. I told him it was set for 9 a.m. He showed me his watch. 9 a.m. had already passed 3 times. When the door finally opened, there was no judge, no jury, no audience. Just a humming sound, faint, like a dial tone from a number that used to exist. Final scene. A guard doing final checks walks past Combs' cell. The door is shut. Lights dim. No movement inside. He radios in, asks if the inmate's been moved. No response. He opens the hatch. The cell is empty, perfectly clean. No sheets, no clothes, no signs of struggle. But from deep within the room, beneath the ventilation grate, a sound loops. A voice. Calm. Spot was just the vessel. The signal still lives. And for a moment, the guard can't tell whether it came from inside the room or inside his own head.